Gear up for Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. It's your final word on sports all across the state. Here's your host, Phil Kornblue.
And I did not put much pressure on him during the process about winning. All I said was, we've got to beat Clemson, and I'd like to go to Omaha. I really didn't get into more detail than that.
Early on, I'll have to establish what the expectations are, how they go about their business, how they go to work every day. And then once I've established that, if we have the right culture, the players will start holding each other accountable.
Well, it sounds simple enough. Beat Clemson and go to Omaha. Athletic Director Ray Tanner laying down the expectations for Mark Kingston, officially announced this afternoon as the new head coach, the 30th head coach of the South Carolina Gamecock baseball program. And with that, we welcome you into Sports Talk Friday night edition on the South Carolina Radio Network, along with the Professor Tom Hayes. I am Rickson Lane, filling in for Phil Kornblue. So the Mark Kingston era begins today as he is announced as South Carolina's new head coach at this afternoon's press conference over at The Zone. Got a lot to get to from that presser throughout the show. 6:20, we will have a one-on-one with Mark Kingston that we recorded earlier this afternoon. We will also have some Ray Tanner sound for you at 7:45. Got a packed show tonight. In between those two bits of Gamecock baseball sound, we'll have David Hood for you at 6:30. He's out in Oregon for the opening, covering all the Clemson commitments and prospects that are competing at Nike's big event this week. We'll have George Bryan on at 7:05, talk a little golf with him. Monty Dutton at 7:30, NASCAR talk, and Trey Dyson going to come on at 7:20 to discuss tomorrow night's Blowfish against South Carolina alumni baseball game. So a lot to talk about tonight. Want to get your thoughts, as always, 800-956-7266. That is the telephone number. You can also find us on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Mark Kingston, 6 years, $600,000 total annual salary for the former South Florida head coach. Also got some nice incentives in that contract. $10,000 for an SEC East title, $15,000 for a regular season title, $15,000 for an SEC tournament championship, $20,000 for a trip to Omaha, and $80,000 to bring home South Carolina's third College World Series national championship. And the prevailing word coming out of The Zone this afternoon was, believe it or not, shocking, he won the press conference.
Oh, did he win the press conference?
That's what everyone's saying. He won the press conference.
All right. Some fans would say the press conference was lost when they didn't get a big name, but that's some fans. But yeah, you're right. I think he did win the press conference. The guy has been successful. He's comfortable in his own skin. That's the way he looked today, and he was ready to go to work. And they mentioned the fans. He says he's ready for it, because baseball is one of those games where you second guess everybody. But I always tell people, my buddies, when we second guess, I say, well, wait a minute. Here's the game I play. Tell me when the coach or manager does something stupid, but it works out. And then tell me when he does something smart and it doesn't work. Then you can tell me you're really analyzing the game. What I'm really trying to say is, you may make the right move and it doesn't work out. Just like we were talking about O'Sullivan the other night, bringing in the potential Game 3 starter to finish the game off with runners on first and third in a one-run ball game and only one out. People in Florida would be screaming today if that didn't work out and they lost that series. It's just like people in Corvallis, Oregon, saying, Coach, why didn't you look at the replay? The ball was fair. And they could have been standing there. So, everybody gets second guess. But it seems like when you're a coach, you got to be kind of tough-skinned and just let it roll off your back. But he gets a decent little raise. What, about $460?
Yeah, not bad. A nice
bad
little jump from what he was making down with the Bulls of South Florida. And like we say, here's the thing about the press conference, guys. It's the Washington Generals. If you lose the press conference, something has gone horribly, horribly wrong. Darren Horn, I will remind you, won the press conference. There have been lots of coaches who've won the press. The press conference should never beat you. You're in marketing and sales for a living. If you're a head coach, you should never lose the press conference. And Mark Kingston did not do that this afternoon, handled himself very well. But going back to the point you were making, Pro, about some fan some discontentment among the Gamecock fans because this is not a big name coach. This is not a Kevin O'Sullivan. This is not someone who's coming off a national championship. This is not a coach who has routinely been in Omaha year after year. And we talked about it a little bit last night, and I thought Mike Morgan made a great point when he said that, it's honestly, it's unrealistic to expect for a program to just be able to poach any big-name coach in the country. And I went back through and I looked at some of the bigger programs in college athletics, not just in baseball, because this is across all sports. Some of the top programs in the country. Think about this. Notre Dame, arguably people would name it as one of the top 5, top 10 college football programs out there. Their coach, Brian Kelly, they hired him from Cincinnati. They didn't go out and hire a Power 5 coach. Ohio State got Urban Meyer, but he didn't have a job coaching when they hired him. Nick Saban wasn't in college when Alabama hired him. He was failing with the Miami Dolphins. John Calipari was at Memphis. He wasn't at a Power 5 job when Kentucky got him. UCLA hired Steve Alford. He's from New Mexico. He'd never been to the Sweet 16 before with 3 different teams before UCLA hired him. And it goes on. You go to Indiana basketball hiring Archie Miller from Dayton. You mentioned Texas yesterday. David Pierce was from Tulane. He's still never been to a super regional. Mm-hmm. Arizona won a national championship 5 years ago. They went and got Jay Johnson from Nevada. He's never been to the postseason. So this idea, like we talked about, like Mike touched on last night, that South Carolina could just go and just slap money in front of Dan McConnell or Kevin O'Sullivan and say, here, you're coming to Columbia. It sounds great, but that doesn't happen in college baseball. It doesn't happen in college football or college basketball. If you're an established big-name program, you don't make a lateral move, and that's what those guys would have been making. They've been making a lateral move for, okay, maybe a little bit more money, but they can get to Omaha just as easily where they are than if they came to Columbia, and that's just the fact of the matter. So people that are complaining that Mark Kingston's not a big name, I would say show me the example of a program the caliber of South Carolina that went and took a coach from an equally a program of equal standing in their sport, because I can't think of one.
Yeah, and I can think of one where I can't remember what West Coast school he came from, but in baseball circles it was a big name. But Tennessee brought him over from the West Coast, and guess what? Big name didn't work out.
No.
So that happens sometimes. Now you can sneak and get a coach if you know the circumstances. He'll say it's not true, but the scuttlebutt was one of the reasons that Frank Martin was interested in this job is because he sort of was on, kind of tough ground with his AD. So sometimes you can sneak a big name out if that happens, but rarely does that happen. As we said before, the reigning national champion, Kevin O'Sullivan, before he took the Florida job, was assistant under Jack Leggett at Clemson. So he wasn't a big name when he was hired.
No. I mean, there are countless examples of programs that have either gone and they've gone the assistant route and it's paid off for them. The Kentucky's done
Mississippi State.
Dan McConnell at Louisville was an assistant coach. Now, granted, Louisville wasn't the Louisville program they are now. Before he got there, he's made them into that caliber program. But I mean, yeah, these people that have been they're so upset about Mark Kingston and about, well, South Carolina couldn't get anybody better than the guy at South Florida. I understand to a certain extent where you're coming from, but I would again go back to, okay, what are you basing this off of? Where are the examples of other programs that have pulled off the kind of hire that you were wanting South Carolina to make? Because everyone who follows college baseball at a national level and the guys that covered them in Tampa, they are all saying Carolina got this one right. All of them.
And let's face it, if guy is good, he's comfortable where he is. And the other example about you think you can get anybody, NC State fired their basketball coach and Herb Sendek, still looking for the Holy Grail. And have gone through 3 coaches since then.
one-on-one with Mark Kingston. Our interview with him coming up next, and we'll try to get to your phone calls as well. 800-956-7266. Eight 800-956-7266. That is the telephone number if you want to get in on the conversation this evening. You can also find us on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Rickson Lane, the Professor Tom Hayes with you this evening, talking about Mark Kingston, the new head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks. Got a quick interview with him coming up in just a few minutes. But first, let's get out to the phone line and take your calls. Again, 800-956-7266. Tom in Columbia, you're on Sports Talk.
Hey, guys. Love your show.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Watched some of the presser today, and I think Coach definitely has a presence about him. And everybody keeps talking about a big name that we needed. I think he's going to be a great fit for this program. I think he talked about, bottom line, he knows baseball. He can spot talent. He talked about players that were hungry. I think as a coach, he's hungry and he's trying to get to that next level as well.
Well, Tom, I appreciate the call, and I think that something that was interesting that he pointed out, Pro, was he mentioned during the presser, talking to his family, he told them that this is the final stop. This is where we're going to be, and I think that type of mentality should, if fans are going to want to looking for a reason to buy into a guy, that's something that maybe a big name coach like a Kevin O'Sullivan, they might not have that mentality coming to South Carolina. This guy's been at Illinois State and South Florida. He wants to be at South Carolina for the remainder of his career. At least, that's what he said today.
Well, of course, this is his first Power 5 job, and he's hoping he, carve out a niche here. He can ride his own ticket. And let's face it, we're at a time now, as we said yesterday, that it's tougher to make the tournament and go to Omaha. But here's a guy who's knows how to get there as an assistant, has been some of the prestigious programs in the country, and has built programs from the ground up. And so it's interesting now. He's at the job I think probably he's been looking for since his entire career, about 18 years as a head coach. So I think he's ready to take off at this point.
Back out to the phones we go, 800-956-7266. John from Rock Hill, go ahead.
Yes. As a quick question, get your thoughts maybe about potential of Boston, the Celtics, my favorite team, getting Paul George and Gordon Hayward real quick.
I think it doesn't matter because Golden State still has their team.
I think the getting Gordon Hayward would probably be a good acquisition for them. The key point is this. You think Paul George, he wants to get back to the West Coast, which is where he's from. And you almost got a feeling that that's going to be either the Clippers or the Lakers at this point in time. Gordon Hayward, his old coach, is at Boston, so you could see there may be a natural fit there. If Boston gets either one of them, the odds are in the favor of getting Gordon Hayward out of Utah.
I don't enjoy peddling in false hope. You're all playing for second place. 800-956-7266. That is the number. One more call we'll take before we get to the Mark Kingston interview. Barry in Fort Hill, go ahead.
Yes, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, Barry.
I was just wanting to ask you a quick recruiting question. I don't know if you know the answer right off. This past Sunday, some guy that I think Georgia and Carolina and Alabama was after was supposed to commit. Do you have any information on him?
We'll look that up for you, but I think the guy you're talking about is supposed to commit at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. We'll look that information up and give it to you. Just keep listening.
Trying to get Cornblue a quick text here. While we do that and look for that information, thank you for the call, Barry. Thank you to all the callers who have chimed in tonight. Let's get our interview with Mark Kingston, the new head coach of the South Carolina Gamecock baseball program. He sat down with Jared for a few minutes this afternoon.
Well, I've been able to meet a lot of people so far. Obviously, athletic department people, board of trustees, met some fans, met some supporters of the program, met some players. It's very exciting. Everybody is excited about what this program can be, and I'm happy to be a big part of that. It's not just about the head coach. It takes a village to have success and to raise players. So it takes a lot of people, and I've met a lot of the people that will be involved in our program, and very excited about the quality of people here.
And Ray Tanner described you as a professional, and you said that you don't have hobbies. It's baseball, right, family, and faith. Just working that hard, what does that say to your success? How did you build that level of mentality with the approach to the game?
Well, I never took the easy way out. I took some jobs along the way that maybe some people wouldn't take for fear of not being able to have success there. But I wanted to hone my craft as a coach. I wanted to be challenged. And along the way, we've had the success necessary to set us up to be considered for a job like this. So looking back, I'm very happy with the decisions we've made. I'm very happy with the work we put in to have that success. And the fact that it led here is very exciting.
You said baseball was a game designed to break your heart.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about those heartbreaks and maybe some of your defeats that you've learned from.
Well, if you play or coach long enough, you're going to have your heart broken. There's going to be great successes, and been lucky enough to go to Omaha 3 times, but there's been a lot of seasons that ended with losses. It's just part of it. You're going to have failures. So that's why you need to have a strong culture where the players, the coaches are supportive of each other to help get through those tough times, because in this sport, there's going to be tough times. So you want to build a culture where when you do experience something tough, you become stronger from it.
And you talked about culture. There's culture that you interact with your players, but you also want to build a culture from in between the players. What are you looking for in your players and how they interact with each other? How do you know that you've accomplished the culture that you want and how they interact?
When I don't have to tell them they're not doing it properly, when they'll tell each other that's when you have the right culture. Early on, I'll have to establish what the expectations are, how they go about their business, how they go to work every day. And then once I've established that, if we have the right culture, the players will start holding each other accountable. To me, that's the biggest thing. You want a close-knit group. You want guys to feel like they're each other's brothers and that they'll be there for each other. And then when a guy steps out of line, somebody will be strong enough to get him back.
Okay, and what do you want the audience to know about you or to know about how you approach this game?
I love it. It's all I've ever done. I played it. It's pretty much the only job I've ever had has been baseball related. So I just love what I do. I love the impact we can have on these student athletes in the present tense, but also for their futures. And we're going to work hard every day to try to reach this potential.
Now, I talked to Joey Knight down in the Tampa Bay, and you said you had a brief cup of coffee in the majors.
Incorrect. Incorrect. I was released off the AAA team in spring training with the Chicago Cubs. So no, I never did get across that line to get to the big leagues. So that drives me to help our players that I get to coach and develop now. It drives me to help them one more step that I did.
That is new South Carolina head baseball coach Mark Kingston vehemently denying that he had a Major League Baseball career.
Yeah, he was close.
He's
AAA.
As close as you could possibly get in AAA.
Now, the call we had previous, we'll get back to the coach in a minute. He's probably talking about this defensive tackle, Stephon Wynn from IMG Academy, who I think who had looked over several schools and narrowed it down to Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina. Some people say it's down to Alabama and South Carolina. We'll know probably 1 o'clock tomorrow for Stephon Wynn. That's the gentleman.
As a 6'4", 285-pound defensive end, as Pro mentioned, from the IMG Academy, native of Anderson, South Carolina. So an in-state recruit for South Carolina and Clemson, even though he does not currently play in the state. But pros, as we listen to Mark Kingston and the comments he made this afternoon, I mean, I feel like if you're a Gamecock baseball fan, what you heard today, again, it's the press conference, but what you heard today, I have to imagine, makes you feel a little bit better about the hire that was made.
Well, I think what I like about him is his demeanor, because he didn't come in yelling or whatever, or his voice didn't get too high or low. He looks like a guy who's comfortable in his own skin, and that makes me think he's a calculator. He knows what he's doing. But since he's been thrown out of a few games, he can crank it up a little bit if you want to see that on the sidelines too.
David Hood up next. Friday night Sports Talk rolls on the South Carolina Radio Network. Rickson Lane, Tom Hayes with you. You can reach the show at 1-800-956-7266 or find us on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. We will get to David Hood live from the opening in Beaverton, Oregon in just a moment. As pros look up at the TV here, a lot of chatter about the NBA free agents. Am I crazy for just not thinking any of this matters?
Yes.
Well, man, who's going to catch Golden State? What move can a team make to catch Golden State?
Well, you can catch Golden State, but here's the problem with Golden State that people had to understand, and that is it's a different deal with Golden State than any other team. If you notice, one of the reasons they beat Cleveland last year, or well, this past season, is because it's scramble ball. Notice how you're taught from day one, especially your bigs, to go to the bucket. Go to the bucket. Well, a lot of times, Golden State, when you go to the bucket, they're shooting these long jumpers, and you're going to the bucket, and that ball kicks out high. Golden State is one of the best loose ball rebounding teams in the NBA because they shoot a lot of threes. Guys standing under the basket, the ball is 20 feet away because the ball is kicking out this way. You have to be in a scramble mode. And I will say this, whoever plays them has to just play tough defense and rebound. That's the way you beat them. That's the only way you can beat them. And then you have to make Curry play defense, because as good as he is, what got him to drop to Golden State during this draft time, people think it was his size. And I keep telling people it wasn't his size. There was always questions, and he had the problem at Davidson too, his ankles. And of course, he's had to have, 2 ankle surgeries when he first started, and he's been healthy ever since. I think a trainer got a hold of him who used to be with Golden State, and he worked in Atlanta, and showed him how to use his hips more in his shot and running to take pressure off his ankles. Because you notice he tries to stop on a dime when he's shooting that jumper. That puts a lot of stress on your ankles. But and let's face it, when Cleveland won the year before, everybody talks about the ejection of the forward. But I really thought it was the fact that Curry's ankles weren't working that well. If you notice, he didn't really was playing any defense back then, and his shot was off. So what I'm trying to say is, if you've got the talent, some other ogre will get up and grab you, and it's called health. Because I can remember when Magic Johnson was in his heyday, and they were winning championship after championship. What happened that third time? Magic's ankle went that next championship series, and that's when the bad boys of Detroit finally won one. So I'm just saying, even though you say, comparatively speaking, yeah, it'd be tough to beat Golden State, but if it isn't the talent, that ogre called health kind of haunts you. That's why everybody talks about a three-peat. That's what haunts most teams, talking about a three-peat. And let's face it, when Michael won those championships, notice how much health that the Bulls had back then. They've rarely had injuries in the championship round. So it's interesting. Health, if I think anything grabs Golden State, is health. That's what'll grab them.
I mean, obviously injuries play a part of it. I mean, I look at that finals. Look, Cleveland had 3 All-Stars on that team. LeBron and Kyrie played as well as they possibly could play, and they weren't even close. They weren't even competitive. I know they won Game 3, Pat. I know they won one game. They won one game. They won Game 4. They avoided the. You're right. They won Game 3. But I mean, they weren't even near that team. I mean, you looked at the first 2 games the first 2 or 3 games of that series that Golden State won. Those games weren't even close. So I get that. I get what you're saying. Obviously, if somebody gets hurt, if Kevin Durant tears his ACL next year, then yeah, maybe things are a little different. If Steph's ankles give out, then maybe things are a little bit different. But I look at all these. I mean, I look at these teams fighting over Blake Griffin and Gordon Hayward. I'm thinking, what does that do for you? That doesn't bring you closer. I mean, these teams like Miami all amped up over trying to land Gordon Hayward. You're not in the same stratosphere as the teams that are competing for a championship, which is Cleveland and Golden State. So I understand why this is fun for the diehard NBA fans, but I look at all these moves going on, and it's hard for me to not look at them and go, what is the point of all this? Because none of you are close.
Well, if you're in the East, you're just trying to get past LeBron. That's what you're trying to do.
Or ship him, or get him to ship to LA, get him out of there. I mean,
no, he's not going to LA. I keep telling you, this is what I can't understand about some of the free agency. If I'm in the Eastern Conference, I'm going to sell the guy out west. Look at these teams out west you got to get through. Come over here. That's why when people talk about a Blake Griffin, the key to Blake Griffin is, again, here's another guy who can't stay healthy. That's his big knock. I can see Blake Griffin in a place like Boston. And Boston could get by LeBron with a Blake Griffin.
Could they?
Yes. They
lost by 50 at home to him this year.
By
50.
Yeah,
at home.
That was one game.
Okay.
I can remember
the rest of that series wasn't a barn burner either.
I can remember when the Celtics beat the Lakers by something like 40 in the first game. Who won the championship series? The Lakers did. All they did was make them mad. But no, the game is a little bit different now, and I think he probably has probably about 3 or 4 prime years left. But Blake Griffin in the same front court with an Al Horford, who's a pretty much more versatile big guy who can handle the ball but still block shots, take pressure, and then you have to have Blake Griffin play his game underneath. That could help a Boston team defensively, because here's the problem with Boston. Boston's best offensive team is also their worst defensive team. Why? Because Isaiah Thomas is on the floor. And if you notice, every time he's on the floor, he will score, but teams run plays to exploit his lack of defense. He just can't. And so there's where the quandary is with Boston. That's why I thought Boston would try to trade him this year to see if they can find, if they got a point guard in the draft, which they decided to trade down. So it'd be interesting to see how it goes. But yeah, that's Boston's one problem is offense, defense. Your best offensive team is your worst defensive team.
800-956-7266. That is the telephone number. Also on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. We have been unable to connect with David Hood of TigerNet.com out in Oregon. Man, was it Jerry that was bragging on him before the show about the 3-hour difference and it wasn't gonna bother him? Yeah. Thanks.
Well, he's probably what he's probably done is he's gone.
He's probably out getting Jerry Rice's autograph.
No, he's probably out there and gone into that big shop they have in Beaverton with all the Nike stuff, and he's gotten high on it. He's just drunk seeing all the Nike stuff they have.
Loaded up on the swoosh gear. Man, I'm scrolling through Twitter here, and I see the Columbia Fireflies Twitter account. Man, I just feel so bad for them. Like, what can you imagine what life after Tebow is like for that team now? You've been playing in front of these. Did you see the report that came out from Baseball America that Tebow was worth, on average, 2,500 fans per game in the South Atlantic League?
Oh, yeah. Everywhere they went around the league was pretty much a sellout to see Tim Tebow.
I'm looking here at 4,600 fans per game in Hagerstown. They took the number. They took the number of fans that attended the games he was in, and the number that he was not in. Holy cow!
I tell you what, I found somebody a few years ago who hated Tim Tebow.
There's only one person?
Yeah, just one person. I found. This is why she said she hated him. He was homeschooled, of course. And she said the closest school to him to play football would have been her school. And he went on the other side of town to play with a football powerhouse. He should have played for her high school.
Nice High School locked him up. Recruiting report coming up next on Sports Talk. 800-956-7266. That is the telephone number. You can also find us on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Rickson Lane and the Professor Tom Hayes with you on a Friday night on South Carolina Radio Network. Good to have you along with us. We were unable to connect with David Hood, senior writer for TigerNet.com, who's out covering the opening out in Beaverton, Oregon. Did want to pass along a couple of notes from his article on TigerNet earlier this afternoon. Said once again, Trevor Lawrence, the Clemson quarterback commitment, had a very solid day. Connected multiple times with Justin Ross, who is high on Clemson's list of potential wide receivers. Ross said of Lawrence, quote, "He's one of the best quarterbacks I've ever played ball with. Every ball he throws is perfect and right where the receiver wants it." David Hood also mentioning a couple recruits that have been talking very positively about Clemson, some parents that are high on the Tigers and would like for their sons to maybe make their way down to Death Valley to play for Dabo Swinney. Clemson really getting it done at the national level now. Obviously, coming off the national championship, they are the big thing at the moment. But that's a trend that they have been on for the past couple years, really starting to establish that national footprint, and it is paying off in spades for the Tigers, as they've got some of the top college prospects in the country talking about Clemson and their football program out at the opening this week in Oregon. Let's get to the recruiting report. And as Pro mentioned earlier, defensive end Stephon Wynn Jr. of Anderson and IMG Academy in Florida, he is set to announce his decision tomorrow at 1 o'clock. South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia are his top three. He's not stated anything publicly about a favorite, and recruiting experts are all over the board on where he may wind up. South Carolina has one quarterback committed for the 2018 class. It's a big one, to Kerryon Joyner of Fort Dorchester. The Gamecocks would like to get another quarterback for the class, and they're continuing to sort through possibilities. Two options are Cordell Littlejohn of Roswell, Georgia, and Carter Bradley of Jacksonville. Neither has an offer from the Gamecocks, but Will Muschamp and Kurt Roper plan further evaluations in July to determine if one or both should receive an offer. Littlejohn, for his part, attended USC's junior day back in January and is back on campus for a camp earlier this month. Littlejohn said that Coach Roper seemed to really like him and told him that they were going to keep recruiting him, but he wanted to see him play some his senior year. Says when he went to the camp, he thought he did a good job. He thought that he shocked the coaching staff and showed the Division I caliber player. And when he went to junior day, Muschamp told him that they liked him and wanted to see him throw it live and that he was going to be recruited hard. He did not get to talk to Muschamp at the camp. Littlejohn has also been to Georgia and Alabama this summer. He's going to Louisville this month, and he also has offers from Tulane and Illinois. He has said that South Carolina and Louisville are the two schools showing the most interest in him at this point. He moved to Roswell in January. He's from Lincolnton, North Carolina. Last season, 3,655 yards through the air and 50 touchdowns for DeKerion Joyner. Or pardon me, not DeKerion Joyner, Cordell Littlejohn of Roswell, Georgia, hoping to potentially join Joyner in Columbia. Defensive end KJ Henry of Clemens, North Carolina, he's at the opening this week, and he told Rivals he hopes to get to Clemson's all-in cookout next month. He may not be able to attend. They've got a 7-on-7 tournament in Canton, Ohio, July 20th through the 22nd. He instead may visit Ohio State with his teammates while at that tournament. He's also said South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Virginia Tech are the other main teams with him at this point. Linebacker Channing Tindall of Spring Valley is at the opening. He told the media there his top schools are South Carolina, Georgia, Auburn, Florida, and Notre Dame. He wants to visit Florida, Florida State, and Georgia in July and make his decision in July as well. So Channing Tindall could get an announcement from the Spring Valley linebacker sooner rather than later. South Carolina running back target Levante Valentine of Melbourne, Florida. He plans to announce his two top schools soon. He's got a short list of the Gamecocks, Southern Cal, Kentucky, Notre Dame, Louisville, Florida, and LSU. And according to the Index Journal out of Greenwood, Spartanburg Methodist infielder Sheldon Reed, who's a Greenwood native, he has changed his commitment from South Carolina to Clemson. Reed said the coaching change at South Carolina sparked his decision to flip to the Tigers after he was offered by Clemson head coach Monty Lee last season. For Spartanburg Methodist, Reed batted .448 with 11 home runs and 47 RBIs. That's something that immediately Mark Kingston is going to have to try to hold this recruiting class together, because we know that Chad Holbrook was able to put together solid classes during his time at South Carolina. It's going to be up to try to keep the departures from occurring, and you, especially for South Carolina, you don't want to be losing those players to Clemson, who's had your number the last 3 seasons. So that'll be the right out of the gate for Mark Kingston, is trying to avoid losing guys like Sheldon Reed, who's now committed to the Tigers.
Yeah. You're going to have that sort of attrition when you have a coaching change. But, you know, a lot of guys in South Carolina, they make their decision, especially in baseball, sort of early on, which school, if they're going to one of the major schools, South Carolina or Clemson, and they rarely change once they do it. So it'd be interesting. I don't think it is as tough to hold on to recruit, say in baseball, as it is in football or even basketball for that matter. But that's one of those rare occasions where a guy sees his opportunity, maybe to bat either in front of or behind Seth Beer and maybe see some good pitches. And then if he has a good year, then he can see where his draft status is, him being a JUCO.
Yeah, those JUCOs out of Spartanburg Methodist, they have had a lot of success coming out of that program. They have churned out some high-quality Division I baseball talent over the last, 10, 15 years. That program has really become sort of a go-to for the teams in this state to try to maybe get your hands on somebody that you couldn't haul in after high school, or you had something go wrong trying to get players, and they wound up at SMC. You get a second chance at them after those 2 seasons are up, and they have certainly been a breeding ground for Division I baseball talent. One other note on the recruiting front, Carter Bradley, the son of a former Jacksonville Jaguars coach, Gus Bradley. He's recently camped at LSU. Draw some praise from Ed Orgeron, Tigers head coach. Will Muschamp also wants to see him at a South Carolina camp before moving forward with him. He's considering attending one on July 21st. Georgia also expressing interest in Bradley, with Kirby Smart leading the effort there. They want him to visit next month for Dog Night. He has dropped Ole Miss from his list and has replaced it with Auburn, which has him very high on their recruiting board. So the former Jaguars coach, his son, getting a lot of pub and a lot of love from the programs around the Southeastern Conference. Carter Bradley, the quarterback out of Jacksonville.
Well, you're going to see a lot of guys kind of tipping away from Ole Miss because they're really in purgatory at this point in time. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But that's one of those cases where maybe the fans were right, that Ole Miss got too good too quickly. And usually when that happens, the NCAA comes sniffing around.
It wasn't just the fans. There were a lot of people that kind of looked up and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Where are all these top 5 recruiting classes coming from on the heels of 7 and 6 seasons?
Now, Ole Miss does have a history now. And have a beautiful campus, nice stadium, but not that quickly. Sometimes you can get too good too quickly.
Poor Hugh Freeze got everything he ever wanted, except for, any championship of any sort. And now it looks like it all may come crumbling down on him. Hour number 2 coming up. George Bryan, Trey Dyson, Monty Dutton, and Ray Tanner audio all coming up for you in hour number 2 as we continue to discuss all things sports, including the new head coach for the South Carolina Gamecocks. We will hear from South Carolina's AD. All that coming up in our second hour.
stop now. More sports talk is on its way. Listen to the final word in sports all across the state with your host, Phil Kornbluth.
Hour number 2 of Sports Talk, live on a Friday night on the South Carolina Radio Network. Rickson Lane and the Professor Tom Hayes with you. Good to have you join us. Go on to the phone line now as we are joined for birdies and bogeys by our resident golf expert, George Bryan. George, thanks for coming on with us. What's the word this weekend in golf up in Potomac, Maryland?
Well, got a Lingmerth. He's just ripping through it. And by the way, that golf course is that's just unbelievably hard. I can't believe he's 10 under at this point. He played at Arkansas, but weekend, a different story. I got to tell you, right now this weekend, I'm spending at Columbia Country Club, the city golf tournament, and next week I'll be in New York though for the Peak and Peak. But the Columbia City Championship's what I want to talk about right now. So let me tee it up real quick. Burt Cromer shoots 64-70 to win the pro division. Shane Rogan's got the lead in the amateur division at 68-68. Seems like golf's pretty easy for Rogan, Cromer, and that young fella from Arkansas in Potomac.
Yeah, 10 under, nothing to sneeze at no matter what course you're at.
I played it last year. I was at Congressional watching the event. Congressional is right beside it. And this golf course on TV does not necessarily look very hard, but it is as hard. And I think the cut will go to 4 over par. Anytime pro event cut is even par over, that means the golf course is really hard. So the weekend's another story, and I'll look forward to talking more maybe next weekend about that. And, hey, got to recognize Walker Jones in junior golf, the Florence Junior. He wins it last week with a fine 600 total. Cody Tranzau finishes second, and Tyler Gray finishes third. So I'll also report next weekend on the Columbia City amateur results. Played at Columbia Country Club. Incidentally, I hear the greens are just lightning fast and pure. So it's a privilege to tee it up with you guys, and I hope you have a great weekend, all right?
That is George Bryan. George, we appreciate you being on with us for birdies and bogeys. Hit them well and hit them straight for us this weekend.
Thank you.
David Lingmerth, as he mentioned, 10 under right now at Quicken Loans National up in Maryland. Some other notes, the in-state guys. Bill Haas tied for 16th. He is at 1 under. Wesley Bryan at 3 over. He's tied for 47th. And Lucas Glover having some trouble. His day has not gone according to plan. Had a triple bogey on 10. He is at 4 over at the moment. Dropped 48 spots from round 1 to round 2. So currently tied for 63rd at the moment.
Do you know what a cut line is?
I think he said it thought it was going to be even par.
Even par.
They thought that par was going to be the cut line. Right now, I mean, I'm looking though, the projected cut at the moment. I'm looking at the projected cut right now on the website, on the PGA Tour website, and they're saying 4. So they're saying Glover's in at 4 over, because that would give them 63 guys going into the weekend. So it looks like Glover may sneak in. Of course, if you've had a round that went the way his round went today, I'm not sure whether you want to go out there for 2 more times.
You might want to go back to the practice tees, instead of trying to just maul your way through the next couple of days. But it'll be interesting to see 10 under par. They'll be chasing him. It's somehow, it's almost like when they get to the 10th green on a Saturday and people still chasing them and they see that lead narrow. Some guys can deal with it. Others, they kind of start to stumble before they head to Sunday.
So we will keep our eyes on Lingmerth as he continues to try to pull away from the pack at Quicken Loans National. We will go back to the phone lines now as David Hood has emerged from the Nike shop with his bags in tow and all his new gear on hand. David, thanks for joining us. How's it going out there in Beaverton?
It's good. We've been trying to see some of the sites, and then, like you said, they gave us a pass to go to the Nike employee store, so everything is half off with no sales tax. So took advantage of that for sure.
How many articles of neon clothing do you own now?
There's a few. I'm kind of a fan of that Oregon Duck yellow. And they had some shoes there that kind of look like that I really wanted, but they didn't fit. But yeah, I've definitely got some colors in the wardrobe now.
Well, just so send Phil your size. I'm sure they can get something made up pretty quick.
Well,
there you go.
David, tell us this, because I'm not sure of this. Now, at the opening, are you allowed to have any coaches around, or this is coaches are persona non grata here? They can't be on the sideline.
Right. There are no coaches here. The only quote unquote coaches that are allowed are the coaches that are hired by Nike to be out there. Guys like Jerry Rice, Larry Fitzgerald's been out there, and then some of the other guys. But college football coaches, no, they are not allowed. They're not here.
Talking with senior writer for TigerNet.com, David Hood. David, looked like it was another solid day for Trevor Lawrence, and it looked like he was hooking up with one of Clemson's top receiving targets. What did you see today from Justin Ross?
He's just so tall. I mean, I'm 6'3", and when I stand there and talk to him, he's half a head taller than I am, and when he runs, he's just so long and athletic. He's got long arms, and there were some throws into the back of the end zone that you see it come out of the quarterback's hand. You're like, oh, well, that's going to be out of bounds or whatever, and then Justin just goes up and he gets it. And he's a lot to me like a very young Alshon Jeffrey. I think that's kind of the way I look at him. I haven't really seen the top end speed yet because I haven't seen him run those kind of routes. But just being able to kind of go up and use the physicality and get the football, that's what he reminds me of.
So you're saying he's the type of guy that you throw to when he's open and you throw to him when he's not open.
That's exactly it. He has an ability to use that size to kind of get some separation, and then, he can definitely go up over a cornerback and get the football.
Talking with David Hood from TigerNet.com, live from the opening out in Beaverton, Oregon. David, one of the benefits for these programs that are able to get high-profile commitments early on, like Clemson's been able to do, is that oftentimes those kids will act as recruiters for other prospects, guys that they run into at these regionals and at things like the opening. Have you seen any of that from current Clemson commitments this week with all that top talent in one place? Have you seen any kind of recruiting going on? Because as you mentioned, no coaches there, but the players themselves can maybe try to get in the guy's ear and maybe try to swing him over to a particular school. Have you seen any of that?
Yeah, talked to Trevor Lawrence's parents, and they were talking about how he's good friends with Brennan Eagles, who's a wide receiver out of Texas. It's kind of been in his ear a little bit. And then Justin Ross and Trevor, they were talking today, and Justin was saying that Trevor's, telling him, hey, this could kind of be the future if you choose Clemson. Trevor's really kind of a quiet guy, and I think when we're, going to see the real recruiting go on is when the rest of these guys get here, the offensive linemen, defensive linemen, the running backs are coming in. We've got the showcase tomorrow night. So I think that's when that's really going to start to pop, because Trevor's the lone Clemson commitment we've seen so far, and he's very quiet, and he's not going to push guys like we've seen maybe in the past.
What type of drills do they run for the linemen to try to hone their skills? Have you seen any of that yet?
No, that's all going to start tomorrow. The linemen are all going to check in, but I've seen it in the past. And, for the defensive linemen, they're going to put the bag on them and teach them to pass rush, how to use their hands, how to use different moves. They're going to work on their footwork. Same thing with offensive linemen. And then, when it's going to be fun is when they put on the pads and they do that the offensive line, defensive line showcase. That's, I think it's called the OLDL Challenge. And that's when these guys get to put on the pads and go head-to-head. It's going to be fun to watch, guys like maybe Xavier Thomas go up against Jackson Carman, who Clemson's in on, but maybe Ohio State leads for. Jamari Sawyer, who's out of the state of Georgia, see how he, reacts against some of this top-tier talent. That's to me, that's just going to be fun stuff. I'm going to have my phone out ready to video.
That is David Hood from TigerNet. Appreciate it. Trey Dyson coming up next. Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball reporting that Chad Holbrook, Bradley LaCroix, and Scott Forbes of North Carolina, 3 names to keep an eye on for the potential job at College of Charleston. Rogers saying that Holbrook is the front runner for that job. So Chad Holbrook's stretch of unemployment may not last very long if the Cougars decide to snatch him up. LaCroix, obviously the Clemson assistant, also a name to keep an eye on if College of Charleston decides to make a move. Back on Sports Talk, Rickson Lane, the Professor Tom Hayes with you. Good to have you join us on a Friday night. Final quick recruiting note, Quashawn Greenlee of TL Hanna, the offensive lineman, he has committed to be a Wofford Terrier. So Greenlee will join the fold for the Terriers next season. Been talking baseball throughout the first hour. We'll have Trey Dyson on with us in just about 2 minutes, the ringleader of the USC alumni team. They take on the Columbia Blowfish tomorrow night at 7:05. We'll talk to Trey about the matchup tomorrow night. But obviously the big baseball news in Columbia has been the official hiring of Mark Kingston, the former South Florida head coach. Had a run of success for the Bulls, took them to 2 NCAA tournaments in 3 years, had the misfortune of running into the Florida Gators in both of those regionals at South Florida. Also took Illinois State to just their 3rd regional in program history. So Mark Kingston officially announced as the new hire for South Carolina today. $600,000 a year, over 6 years. And a couple people a little up in arms over that number, talking about how this was a guy that wasn't making nearly that much when he was at South Florida, and all of a sudden he's got this pay raise. And these were also fans who wanted Carolina to write a blank check to a lot of these big-time coaches, but Mark Kingston makes $600,000, and all of a sudden it's too much money to spend on a baseball coach.
It's a good investment and may pan out in the future. As I said, you look at a guy who's established and a winner, and you kind of like that kind of thing, but you try to question whether the hunger is there, and that's the key, because he knows at this point that it's his program, and if he does well, he'll put his stamp on it.
We are joined now by Trey Dyson, former South Carolina baseball player. He calls games for the Gamecocks. And Trey, did you give Coach Kingston permission to wear that number 17 when he got to Columbia?
Well, obviously he's right.
Right.
I'm a giver.
Were you able to see any of the Kingston press conferences? If so, what was your reaction to his first day on the job?
I am very impressed. And, I think that Coach Tanner hit a home run with this guy. Faith, family, and baseball. Those are 3 things that are the staples to a great program. To me, look at Dabo Sweeney up there in Clemson for Exhibit 1A. And I think this guy has everything. I think he's got great awareness, and I think Coach Tanner did a great job. You know, just because successful coaches are making $1 million a year, Coach Tanner was only making about $75,000 the first year he took us to Omaha. So it's not about a high-price coach; it's about getting the right coach.
Now, here's the feeling. You could sell the bet for us, Trey. Phil and I had a bet. And okay. I told him that Ray he worships at the temple that's Omaha, Nebraska. And I said, Ray may have his coach already, but he's not going to name that coach until after the College World Series is over. Oh, no, if he had the coach in mind, he would have hired him right off. What do you think? Did you think Tanner already had him in mind once he did the interview and just waited till the College World Series was over?
Well, I do know that he has talked with them over the past, 3 or 4 weeks or so. So he certainly had his eye on this guy for a long time. And as far as what you're talking about, he certainly does have a ton of respect for the game. So I do not know that exactly, but I do believe that he would certainly take that into consideration before raining on the parade of the participants at the College World Series.
He is former Gamecock great Trey Dyson. He is also the fearless leader of the South Carolina alumni baseball team. They're looking to hoist the Gamefish Cup for the 4th consecutive year tomorrow night at Lexington County Baseball Stadium. Series tied up 5-5. It's a big matchup tomorrow night. Coach, can you give us a glimpse? Can you give us a glimpse maybe of what the lineup card may look like tomorrow evening?
Well, yes, I can. We've got national champions Matt Price, Robert Berry, Kyle Enders that are going to be there. Kyle will be our starting catcher. Robert Berry will be in the outfield. Longtime studs Brian Triplett, Brian Jeffcoat. I know I'm leaving off some people here. Hunter Privet is a stud in these games. You may not have known much about him in a Gamecock uniform, but he does a great job in these games. We just hired a director of baseball operations, Jason Compton, a local realtor in the area, so he'll certainly take a lot of pressure off of myself. And there may be a slight chance that Coach Kingston shows up to the game tomorrow night. So we're feeling pretty good about things.
I know that last year you brought Price in to close it out. Do you feel comfortable bringing him back on 1 year's rest if things get dicey tomorrow night?
Of course, yes. 1 year's rest should be plenty enough for Matt Price, although he does get a greater tear in his labrum and rotator cuff, which he's been pitching with a torn one the past couple of years, but that has not stopped him. We feel good about what we got going for us, and Gareth Gons will be there to provide the intimidation to the young Blowfish players. And, we got a few tricks up our sleeve as well. So we're certainly looking forward to a great time, family fun, and a great fireworks show to follow.
Well, how much practice time did you guys get in, or y'all just going out on the field cold turkey?
What we take pride in competing, not in practicing. So, we do just kind of roll out of the bed and show up to the ballpark. That's part of the fun. And, it also gives us an excuse if we lose and just makes us think more highly of ourselves if we win. And we have been lucky enough to win the past 3 years. Most of the guys on the team were on highly successful 50-plus win teams under Coach Tanner. So we know how to compete, we know how to win, we know how to have fun, and we know how to put on a good show.
Trey Dyson employing the Allen Iverson practice plan for his USC alumni team. Trey, before we let you go, we know the game donations for tomorrow night. Again, first pitch 7:05, fireworks afterward, as you mentioned. 2001 Space Odyssey, the theme for those fireworks. Gamecock fans will certainly enjoy that. Donations from the game tomorrow night go to Hands of Hope SC. What can you tell us about that organization?
Well, it's just a great organization that raises awareness for infant with the SIDS and everything. And it's a special family very close to us that has started this. We try to pick a great charity every year. This year it's them. It's a great cause. And, any money raised will be certainly appreciated. Going back to the practice joke, in all seriousness, one of the things I loved about Coach Kingston was the fact that he talked about practice. That was a staple under Coach Ray Tanner teams, and is why we were so prepared to take on whoever we face. So, we don't practice now, of course, but that we did when we played.
That is former South Carolina great Trey Dyson. Trey, good luck tomorrow night. Enjoy. Make sure everybody comes back in one piece.
We sure will. Thank you so much, guys.
Trey Dyson, great for him to
think
join
he was
us.
Talking about the charity SIDS, which is what sudden infant death syndrome is what he's talking about. So that's a great cause. So get out there and watch the guys and take dibs on bets like looking in the dugout and see who grabs Ben Gay before everybody else does.
I wanted to ask Trey if there was a chance he might get in, maybe a late pinch hitting appearance. Does he typically play in those things?
He'll take a swing or two.
That's one. I think you mean that literally, like one or two.
Yeah, one or two.
I think that's all most of those guys would like to take is just one or two at the end of the night and call it an evening. Monty Dutton going to join us next segment. NASCAR talk on the other side at Sports Talk on a Friday night.
The latest on this weekend's race is around the corner. The full Monty on NASCAR is next. This is Sports Talk.
The full Monty with Monty Dutton coming up in just a moment. But first, we'll hit the phone lines, 800-956-7266. Sam in Spartanburg, you're on Sports Talk. Go ahead.
David Ross, the Clemson rider out there in Beaverton, Oregon.
David Hood.
David Hood,
I'm sorry. You don't really think he's going to give you an unbiased opinion about Clemson commitments or possible commitments, do you? I mean, Pro's the only one that's, not unbiased on this program. I mean, how can you have somebody on there
yes.
like him from Clemson, and naturally he's covering Clemson recruits and all, and say, well, John Doe, whatever, is really a dog. I mean, I don't understand it.
Well, first of all, they're not going to bring dogs out to the open.
It's 166 of the best high school players in America. So there aren't going to be a lot of dogs out there, Sam. Furthermore, David Ross is the former catcher for the Chicago Cubs. David Hood's out there because Clemson's got 2 commitments out there and a handful of top prospects out there as well. And frankly, Oregon's very nice this time of year.
And of course, one of those recruits just happened to be arguably the #1 quarterback in the next recruiting class. So yeah, he's falling out there. But there are guys who write for many websites, and they may be associated to following a team, but they still, as far as talent is concerned, can still be objective about what they see.
I want to get back to this claim that you're the only unbiased one on the show. What did I do?
I don't know.
I've only been here 2 days, Sam. Goodness gracious. I don't know how we're going to transfer from that over to the full Monty, but we will bring in the main NASCAR man, Monty Dutton, to join us now on Sports Talk. Monty, what do you think about David Ross being out in Oregon? How do you feel about it?
About David Ross, what now? I had a feeling already that I was getting into this too late.
Not a problem. We appreciate you joining us. The Coke 400 coming up tomorrow night from Daytona International Speedway. They'll go 160 laps tomorrow evening. Kevin Harvick got the win at Sonoma last Sunday. Can he make it back-to-back tomorrow night?
Well, he can, because he's good on plate tracks and he's good on the road courses. So these are places he can. But other than that, last week's race and this week's race have almost nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, Monty, the pressure, or if there's any pressure, may be self-induced, but Dale wants another scout before he hangs it up, doesn't he, Dale Jr.? Isn't this probably the track he'll do it at? Do you think that he's the sentimental favorite for this one?
He's definitely the sentimental favorite. I think that Talladega is maybe a slightly better chance. But if you talk about pressure, he's done very poorly in the two earlier plate races. And so, I mean, he's on the pole. He's real good at these tracks. Of course, this is a plate track. It's probably his best chance to win. But, I think I think so far, I think he's got to conquer his demons a little bit tomorrow night.
Well, the interesting thing about it, when I look at the racing this year, it seems like we've looked up at the end of every race and there's a different guy winning. Just in your opinion, is this good for NASCAR, or would you rather have a guy, say, win a bunch of races, maybe all out of the New York Yankees, somebody to hate and somebody to chase?
Well, I do think that anybody who follows sports, anybody who follows the Yankees or the Red Sox, or who follows South Carolina or Clemson, I think that everybody knows that both love and hate are virtues in terms to the interest of a sport. So I think what the sport needs is a really strong rivalry between people who sort of slug it out week to week. I mean, maybe there's too many can win. Now, I think that one of the reasons that there have been so many different winners, I believe it's either 11 or 12, I think maybe 12, is that because the new nature with these stages and races makes strategic twists and the timing of cautions. If you've been following the races this year, I think one of the recurring, observations is that it seems like that the guy who looks like he's going to win all race long doesn't win. And so I think that it's not, by the way, strategy is one of the most misused words in the English language, particularly in sports, because when people say strategy, they really mean tactics. And it's tactics that are deciding these races. Or maybe sometimes making that move and a debris caution flag or something comes out to help you. That's what's winning races and putting people in position to. And I think that's the reason for there's a lot of Ben. But like, for instance, if you have a situation where Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski, who've had their differences, if they were the guys to beat every week, I think that would boost the interest in the sport. I think people are, right now, Jeff Gordon's gone, Tony Stewart's gone, Carl Edwards is gone, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is about to be gone. This is the time where people have to step forward. This is the little area, because a lot of people out there who are pulling for Dale Earnhardt Jr. like there's no tomorrow are thinking about tomorrow. And they're thinking about who I'm going to pull for when this guy's gone. It could be Chase Elliott. He's his teammate. So I think that the sport right now is sort of at a period of time where one era switches to the other, and we don't know who's going to be the leader in that era.
One of those drivers who has stepped up is Kyle Larson. He's the points leader on the pole last weekend at Sonoma, finished 26th. What did you see that went wrong for him last weekend, and do you expect him to bounce back tomorrow night?
I think that I don't think he's a favorite tomorrow night, but I do think that he's strong everywhere he goes. Now, his two wins, oddly enough, are on the only two. Well, I guess you could say that since Sonoma is 1.99 mile road course, but the two 2-mile tracks are the two places where Larson has won. I think plate racing. I think that Larson is still in the stage of his career where in his mind he thinks it's kind of random, like whoever's lucky, whoever's there, and the driver has not much to do with it. As he gets more experience in plate racing, he'll learn that there are little intricacies that you pick up over time, and he'll be better at it. But I think he might be a little bit too impetuous to think of as one of the top 3 or 4 favorites tomorrow night. I just guaranteed a victory, by the way.
Talking to Monty Dutton as we get you ready for the Coke 400. Flag drops tomorrow night at 7:30. Monty, before we get you out of here, if Larson is obviously not your pick tomorrow, who is your pick to race across the checkered flag tomorrow night?
I'm going to pick the same guy that I picked correctly to win the Daytona 500, but it didn't work out. I'm going to pick Chase Elliott again because he's got to win soon. Last week Harvey won. They're filling in all the blanks. That kid's too good not to win soon. He's on the front row for the second straight race at Daytona.
That is the full Monty with Monty Dutton. Monty, enjoy your weekend and enjoy the race tomorrow night. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it.
So he's guaranteeing a win for Kyle Larson, but he's picking Chase Elliott tomorrow night down at Daytona. And Pro, he's right. No, you talk about the generation of NASCAR of guys like Gordon and guys like Earnhardt that's kind of disappearing. It is going to be interesting to see who steps up to fill that void, like a Larson who's 24 years old. Who are going to be the drivers that kind of create that next wave of incredibly popular fanfare?
Well, it's going to be interesting, but I like a guy with a little fire in the belly and says the wrong things when he comes to the microphone, and even get into a little shoving match after the race. You know, they have to have a little bit of that going on in NASCAR.
We'll hear from South Carolina Athletic Director Ray Tanner next as he discusses the new baseball coach.
As I said a few weeks ago, whatever date that ended up being, June 6th or 7th, and I said it's likely.
Final segment on Friday night here in Columbia, South Carolina is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Rickson Lane filling in for Phil Kornblut, joined by the Professor Tom Hayes. Good full show this evening. Mark Kingston, who sat down with our intrepid producer Jared earlier this afternoon. A surprise interview. Jared broke the line, apparently, at the Zone to go get an interview with Mark Kingston. We appreciate him doing that. Good stuff from the new coach. David Hood joining us, better late than never, from Oregon, which infuriated Sam from Spartanburg. George Bryan, talk a little golf. Trey Dyson, talk the Blowfish Carolina Baseball Alumni Game. That is tomorrow night at 7:05 from Lexington County Baseball Stadium. And Monty Dutton in the last segment, the full Monty, to break down the Coke 400 tomorrow night in Daytona. Dale Earnhardt Jr. on the pole for that race. But, of course, the big story the past few days has been the rumors, the rumblings, and then the official confirmation of the hiring of Mark Kingston as the new head baseball coach for the South Carolina Gamecocks. We heard from Coach earlier in hour number one, and then Ray Tanner met with the media boys this afternoon to discuss things on the baseball front for the Gamecocks.
As I said a few weeks ago, whatever date that ended up being, June 6th or 7th, and I said it's likely to go to the end of the College World Series or to the end of the month. I stayed on task. I was able to get to the people that I needed to get to, and I honestly did vet out a lot of candidates. So, at times I know that that's not great for a particular candidate, but I thought it was the right thing to do. I wanted to get it right. I wasn't concerned about with being fast.
Was Coach Kingston the only one you got on campus?
I don't want to get into that. The answer is no, but you guys didn't get the other candidates, so that was good. But I had a chance to visit with a lot of coaches that were certainly very familiar with what we stand for, and but it was great. This job is a special job, and it created a lot of interest and. But I'm excited that Mark Kingston's our coach.
Ray, there were some fans obviously expecting somewhat of a bigger name, but you're obviously very confident in this guy. What do you say to the fans? Do you have any concerns?
Well, it's interesting. I do tweet occasionally. I like to tweet about the success of our programs. I don't read a lot on social media. My day job is kind of busy. I don't get a chance to get into a lot of that, but when I came home, it was interesting. Last night, 8:30 or 9 o'clock, my wife said, how's your day? How's it been going? I said, it's great. I said, I think that people are going to love Mark Kingston. She had met Mark and T on the visit the previous week, and she said, I'm sure they will. I said, I think that some of the angst is a lot of people do not know who he is. And she said to me, which was prophetic, she looked at me, she said, when you came here, did they know who you were? I said, maybe not. But I think he's a little bit more well-known than that. But I think that, listening to him today, and I'm extremely confident with what he brings and the impact he's going to have on his program.
You feel like you paid about what should be paid for, obviously, Duke, because he made an offer, but do you feel like he's where he should be paid as far as salary goes?
Well, that's an interesting dynamic. I'll say this, and I hope that I don't get in trouble. But I hope that his success in this program dictates a different contract and in a different place in the future. But the incentive package is very strong that he has, and I looked at the comparables in college baseball. I think he's in a good place, but I do not expect him to stay where he is.
Well, his wife was right, Pro, because we mentioned that last night on the program that people talking about Mark Kingston, never been out of a regional. Well, Ray Tanner hadn't either until he got to South Carolina. And then it took him a little while to get things up and running.
Exactly. And as we said last night also, you win 21, 22 straight postseason games in a row. That's ridiculous. If you've gotten spoiled on that, too bad. As we said before, while that run was going, savor it. Just like a good piece of bacon. You just savor it and then say, well, this may not happen again in my lifetime. I think some fans expect it to happen every year. But as I said before, this is going to be an interesting type of journey. I always like to see a young coach move up, hungry, and see how they do things. And of course, he's not as young as your coach because he's a seasoned guy who's coached before at 47 years old. But when you get my age, 47, kind of figured he's still young. So it'd be interesting to see how he does here in South Carolina, finally getting a prime job in the SEC.
Well, and you mentioned the 22 postseason wins in a row is never going to happen again because more schools, and we've heard that from multiple guests over the last 2 days, more schools are devoting resources to college baseball. So more competitive programs means more potential for new blood to get into the postseason, for upsets to occur. Heck, we saw Davidson take out North Carolina in Chapel Hill twice in the regional last year. Those sorts of things are going to become more the norm, I feel like, as schools put more money and back their baseball programs more as that sport continues to grow. So the 22 wins in a row is never going to happen again. And the idea of Omaha being the barometer for your season, and I understand that coaches would like to think that that's the barometer, especially the ones that are getting there often, and the ones that are just taking over, like Mark Kingston, who says we're going to embrace the expectations and we want to go to Omaha just as badly as you do, which is all fine and good. But think about what that means. You're judging a 50-plus game regular season. You're judging that on the performance of 4 to 7 games in the postseason over 2 weekends against some of the best teams in the country. That's not a proper way to judge your entire campaign. I don't know, fans probably don't want to hear that, but if Oregon State had gone out, they go 50-5 or whatever they went this year. If they had won 45 regular season games, gone into the regional and run into 2 hot pitchers, their season could have been over.
Yes.
And to say that season's a failure is just ludicrous. You go 45-7 in college baseball and you deem it a failure. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So the idea that, Omaha is the only way to have a successful season, well, that means 292 teams are failing every year because only 8 of them get to go.
That's right. That's right. An interesting thing, you talk about 2 hot pitchers. Let's face it. Oklahoma State came into the state and their pitching just clicked right in the postseason, wiped out Clemson, then went right down the interstate to Columbia and knocked off South Carolina. Then that same team went right into Omaha and boom, they hit the wall and they lost. So it's very difficult first to get there and very difficult to really to win the thing.
Well, Arizona State in 2010 was 52-7 going into Omaha. 2 in barbecue against Clemson and South Carolina. Lost to the Tigers in the first round. Gamecocks eliminated them the next day. So, and they got to Omaha, so good for them for being able to get there. But, you're going to play 60 games a year, and if you judge your entire campaign based off the final 4 or the final 7 or the final 2 weekends, I don't quite understand the logic behind that.
The interesting thing is the game has changed, and in my mind, it's changed for the better. No more of the gorilla ball and those lightning rods they used to call bats. And then it's interesting that look at the major league rosters now. I almost think it's almost 50-50 or college players versus those who went directly into the minors. So the college game, even though you're still using aluminum bats, because they've changed the equipment, is more like the major league game now. Guys can throw in the guys' kitchens. They don't have to worry about every ball being hit out of the ballpark. The pitching coaches are solid, and they're actually putting out a major league product by the time these guys leave their college teams.
Deshaun Watson announces the ACC Athlete of the Year. No surprise there. That'll do it for us tonight on Sports Talk. Thanks to everyone for joining us. Mark Kingston, David Hood, George Bryan, Trey Dyson, Monty Dutton, even Sam from Spartanburg. Glad to hear from you, buddy. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.